All right, so here we have a data sufficiency problem. The question is this. Reiko went from point A to point B, and then she turned around and went from point B to A at a different speed. The question is, was her rate from point A to B greater than 40 miles an hour? So usually I want to try and get as much work done before I look at these as possible, but there's not a lot of work to be done here. I might say, I might put a question up here, okay? I'll say rate there, okay? R is for rate, T is just there, okay? And it says rate there greater than 40, and then question mark, because that's not a fact, that's a question, and I want to answer this question. All right, that's really all I can do, I think, at this point. So if we look at statement 1, it says the average speed for the round trip was 80 miles an hour. Okay, great. So I want to do some algebra on this. This is my first instinct, okay? So let's do that, okay? So if you want to do an average speed for a round trip, what you need to do is total distance divided by total time, right? So let's do that, okay? I'm going to call the distance from A to B D, okay? So if she went there and then back, then she traveled D twice, right? So that's the total distance, and then the total time is going to be, I'll call it time there plus time back. And I know that this is going to be, distance over time equals 80 miles per hour, they told us, okay? So now I've got this equation. Great. Doesn't seem to tell me that much, though. I don't know. So let's do this. What if we actually put in some numbers and see what happens, okay? So I'm going to call the distance 40 miles, okay? Because I know that's going to work well with 40 miles per hour and 80 miles per hour. So let's just see what happens if I call it 80, okay? 40. So if I replace this algebra and I say, look, so let's say that the distances to there from A to B is 40, then the round trip is 80, right? And then fill in the rest, okay? And let's say the time there, okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just see what kind of different answers I can get. So let's pretend that, okay, I'm going to say, what if she went at 20 miles per hour on the way there, okay? So if she went at 20 miles per hour and she went 40 miles, how long did it take her? It took her 2 hours, right? So I'll put in 2 for time there. And then time back, I'll put that in. I don't know what that is, okay? Except I can see that this doesn't work, right? Because in order for 80 divided by something to equal 80, this stuff here needs to be 1, which means time back needs to be -1. And that's not right. I can't have -1 hours, okay? So what I've got here is, the answer to the question is, was it greater than 40? And I said no. This would give me a no answer, except this is not possible, okay? So that's my first not possible answer. So no isn't working, okay? Well, let me make it all the way up to 40, right? When they say greater than 40, and if I want a no answer, one way to do that is to say she went at 40. So if she went at 40, then that's not greater than 40, right? So I better try that too, just to be safe. So I'll just do this again. All right, 80 is the total distance, and let's pretend that she went 40 miles an hour on the way there, which means that it took her 1 hour to get there, okay? And then time back is going to be whatever it was, equals 80, okay? But I have basically the same problem, right? I need 80 to be divided by 1 to equal 80, which means that her time back, she must have come back, it's not negative, but it's 0, which means she must have jumped back instantaneously. So, we can assume that teleportation is not really a thing on the GMAT. So this would have given us a no answer too, but this is not possible, okay? So, I could probably just move on and say, yeah, it's got to be greater, okay? Because I've got nothing equaling 40 or less than 40 is possible, so I know it's going to have to be possible to be greater, because they did say that it happened, okay? But I might as well just try it just to see what happens, okay? So let's pretend that she went there, and she went there just a little bit over 40 miles an hour, okay? So we'll do this again, okay? 80, round trip was 80, and her time there, if she went there at 41 miles an hour, then if it was 40, then she would have taken 1 hour, but if it's 41 miles an hour, then let's say she takes, 0.99 hours to get there, just a little bit less, okay? Then if I put in time back, and this has to equal 80, here's the thing. This is possible, right? I need the denominator to be 1, and yeah, this is very close to 1, but if she moves super fast on the way back, then that's possible, okay? So this gets me a yes answer, and it's actually possible. If she came back at 500 miles an hour, then this could equal 1. So I've got, for statement 1, I've got, yes, sufficient. Now let's look at statement 2. Now statement 2 is actually, okay, you got to clear your mind and not think about statement 1, okay? What do I know? This 80 miles an hour thing doesn't apply anymore, okay? So all I know is, the question is, hey, did she go greater than 40? And then they say here, well, it took her 20 more minutes to get from A to B than on the way back. And honestly, you can just tell that this is not sufficient, because all it's saying is, I mean, I can imagine a scenario. I could say, yeah, let's say that she went greater than 40 miles an hour, okay? Again, I can just make a scenario. Let's pretend, I don't really need to get into a lot of detail on this one, but let's just say, yeah, on the way there, she went at 80 miles an hour, okay? Then it took her 20 more minutes from A to B than on the return trip. So this is a little slower, which means on the return trip, maybe she went at 85 miles an hour. And what's the distance? I don't know, but I can just make up a distance that this works. So this gets me a yes. Now I want to think about no, okay? And I could do the same thing. I could say, all right, well, she went less than 40 miles an hour. Let's pretend that she drove there at 20 miles an hour. And on the way back, she was a little faster. She went at like 23 miles an hour. And it took her 20 more minutes. And I could just like figure out some distance that works. So that gets me a no. So since it's possible for her to both travel faster and slower than 40 miles an hour, then statement 2 doesn't really work. So A.